Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Getting with the Program, talking about episode 10 of My Hero Academia, Encounter with the Unknown. As such, we need a dashing young heroes such as myself, Pokeprof, the ever wonderful and giggly Kitty,
I am the Candy Queen!
and of course, the ever silent, ever dependable Ashen Sky.
I caught all 26 unknown units.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that bit. Anyway, so Encounter with the Unknown. Very battle heavy episode.
Well, it's understandably so, considering they're facing off against actual villains.
Yeah, this is the episode where we really get to see what the villains are doing, what some of them are capable of, and just to get to see them brawl out with Eraserhead. And just to get to see what he's capable of, considering, as Midoriya actually points out in the episode, his style of fighting and his power are usually reserved for one-on-one and for stealth missions, not for fighting a huge group like he's going to have to.
But it's like he said, you can't be a pro if you've only got one trick.
Mm-hmm.
This is another thing about this series that I love, is showing that these, despite what everyone's powers are, it's showing all the different applications you can use those powers to accomplish.
Exactly. Which especially is interesting considering the fact that Eraserhead's quirk is something that you would honestly label down as a one-trick pony. But because of the power of the quirk, he's able to go and literally erase multiple people's powers instead of just the one. You also then have the fact that he's just a really good fighter in general.
Now, one thing I don't understand, though, is even it stated his quirk is being able to cancel out someone else's quirk by looking at them, but it doesn't explain how he's able to manipulate those bandages he wears.
I think the bandages are a completely separate thing.
Yeah, but they don't explain that.
They're not quirk related.
Okay.
That's just pure unadulterated badass.
Okay.
I'm fine with that, to be entirely honest.
I mean, because they don't explain why his hair goes up when he uses his quirk, and
that's literally just an effect of the quirk.
And it doesn't explain how these bandages are able to levitate or move of their own free will.
Shape memory alloy.
That does.
It's like, it's magic. I don't have to explain it.
I'm a scientist. I ain't gotta explain shit.
Yeah.
Yes, you do if you're a scientist. That's the point of science, is being able to explain it.
Who has the PhD?
Not you.
Oh, wow. This is like the one time we actually get Ash to talk a lot.
Well, of course, it's my hero.
True. But other than getting to see Eraserhead really, take names, we get to see some of the villain's powers, including, as we've called him, Nega Grilby. Apparently has the power of like warping or teleportation. We get to see just some of the other characters and how they act in a situation. But I think one of the most interesting things here, and the thing I think I'm enjoying the most so far, is the fact that we actually get to see the heroes get separated. And because of that, we get to have, like, at least in this episode, a little character moment with Midoriya. We get to, and Asui, who's like, call me so.
Yeah, and Asui.
And then
Kross is happy we got a Froppy episode.
I'm happy. I like Froppy. Like I said, she's the character in this series I've been exposed to the most. So when it comes down to it, she's the character I have the most investment in. But we've got Midoriya, and as I like to call him, Mr. Diaper Guy. I don't know his name proper.
I forgot it too.
It's like his real thing is the fact that his character confuses me, considering the fact that his power is he has little sticky balls on his head that he can pull out and basically can have there as like something that can bounce off things, right?
Well, it said that it sticks on to everything but him.
Yeah.
He bounces off of them.
Yeah. And yet he was able to beat several other characters who have clearly better powers than him to get into this school. I'm like, how? I mean, I get it if there's like, if you're a character who's has like a more defensive power, or one that is more for like helping others and actually going and fighting off the bad guys. But it feels really, really weird that he was able to get here, especially with how much of a scaredy cat we see him throughout this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But this was real. Not only we got to see a focus on these characters, but we really got to see like an in-depth detail about their powers and abilities. Like Sue literally says, like, I can do everything a frog can do. I can jump high. I've got a super long tongue. I can stick to walls. Oh yeah, and I can basically empty my stomach to clean it. It's like,
no. I can pull my stomach out and clean it.
To clean it, although that's not very helpful. And she can secrete a mucus that stings.
Mm-hmm.
Mucus.
Oh, good lord.
Well, the little guy, pretty much had the same reaction there.
Yeah, pretty much.
That was the reference.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
I hate the little guy.
By the looks of it and the way his character acts so far, I would not be surprised if that was a common thing. If like most people who watch this show did not have that much of a respect for him.
He's also a pervert.
Yeah, it's like this is like in this episode alone. Excuse me, alone. He said he's like, you know, he was happy to touch Sue's boobs. And then he was crying about the fact that he wouldn't not be able to touch another character's boobs. It's like,
and then
yeah.
he straight up calls Froggy boobs.
Yeah, he like frog tits or something like that. But so he's clearly a pervert. But what I really found interesting from his standpoint on the entire episode is at the very end of the episode when our student characters are putting their plan into action to try and get to somewhere else to help the others, you see him getting inspiration from Midoriya. You see him like saying like he's like just shocked and surprised that Deku, despite being just as scared as he is, you know, to the point where Deku is shaking, that he's still going through and doing the hero's job that he needs to do, and it helps. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and it inspires our little ball guy to go and do his best as well.
I was just gonna say that this is another good example of Deku putting his tactical sense into operation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he actually says in the episode, he's like, none of the other villains had come up from the water because they get dropped into the shipwreck zone, and they're like, none of them have done anything. You know, why haven't they? And it's because they don't know the kid's powers. And this is further proven by the fact that Sue was dropped into the water zone. And it's like, if they knew her power was that of a frog, they would have put her over in the fire zone instead. And they use that knowledge to their advantage, and the fact that they don't know their powers, to be able to win the day.
But at the same time, like another thing I'm talking about, Deku's tactic, you know, his tactics, the fact that he not only concentrated the force for just 2 fingers so it doesn't put the rest of him out of commission, he knowingly created a void in the water in order to have suck all the villains together in one spot, because he understood the laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I love the fact that you have characters who think through in that way.
Yeah, you get a lot of other shows that really don't have the characters like think like, oh, this and that. It's like, it reminds me of this one story where you actually have a teacher who's teaching her students the same thing. It's the fact that, you know, she was fighting off against someone who did not understand the power of electricity, and the fact that because she had it, she was zapping him back every time he attacked her with a metal weapon. So you don't get to see that kind of aspect in characters normally. So to see it happen in this show, especially with a main character who is as young as Deku is, it really is cool to see him put that forward thinking into action. But let's see, what else? I love the fact that we've got Ida our little speedster character here, who has been pretty much given the nickname Emergency Exit by his classmates
all because he slammed into the wall in the shape of the emergency exit character.
Exactly. I will laugh my ass off if that eventually turns out to become
his hero name.
Yeah, I highly doubt it, considering I don't think he would consider that much of a name that would be like for justice and all that thing, because that's how his character is. But knowing this series and how it's turned the head on the normal shonen anime, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised in the slightest. Sky probably knows, but isn't going to tell us crap.
Oh, why? Where would the fun in that be?
Well, just know that I'm paying you back with other shows. What else do we think we need to cover here? I just find it interesting that we have like this. It's like the fact that he's not getting all that much focus in our villain. It's like I don't think we even have his name properly introduced yet. Or any of them. It's like we still are calling Grilby Nega Grilby. But Mr. Handsy, as I think I've been calling him, despite the fact that we're not really able to get anything, in terms of like why he's doing this, what his backstory is, we're still getting a little bit of information to him. We're seeing he has a bit of like a physical tick. He's constantly scratching at his neck. I like how they're doing that to where it's like, even though they can't really give us any of the backstory on the character, they're still giving us something that can help us identify what this character is about. It's like just having have that like little interesting aspect of him allows us to remember who he is and what he does, even if it wasn't for the fact that it's kind of easy to know, like easy to recognize him for what he is, because he's got hands all over his body.
Yeah, it's kind of distinct.
A bit, yeah. And that's actually the other thing, is the fact that there's just so many of the characters here that are very distinct. It's like, even if we don't know their powers or abilities, we know their looks. The only one who we don't know the looks is the invisible girl, and that's because, duh. You're having fun, aren't you?
Oh, yes.
But other than that, I did like the fact that even though we didn't get that much of a focus on them, we actually got to see what all the other heroes are doing while they're trapped in the other zones. And they're all, teaming up with their classmates and fighting. Or in the case of Mr. Hot and Cold, Mr. Icy Hot, he just goes and freezes literally every single villain that's in front of him. It's like he is quite literally in another tier of hero compared to everyone else so far that we've seen. It makes me really wonder, what does he even really need classes? Is like, I feel like he's the kind of person who, with the way he's set up so far from just what we've seen visually of him and what tiny bit I know of his story already, he should be a hero already. I don't think he needs the classes. No thoughts on that?
I have to agree.
It's like nothing at all. Tra-la-la.
Oh, no.
I mean, we still don't know all of his backstory yet, so I'm really interested to see where this goes with him, because he is ridiculously powerful already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, kind of like how we've gone and called Deku and Bakugo like the Goku and Vegeta of the story so far. Like I said, he is very much the Piccolo.
Yeah, I can see that.
Who's Yamcha?
Probably Mr. Bald Dude. I mean, I fully expect him to get his face kicked in one episode and be in that Yamcha position on the floor. I honestly feel like that would be like the perfect reference there.
I need to get a cake with that on it.
But other than that, really, there's not much more to talk about this episode. This was a very straightforward episode. It was mostly about the characters being separated and having to work together to get around the situation. I mean, the only thing else I think we can think of is the fact that everyone is encouraging Ida, who would normally want to stay and fight because he feels like deserting his friends and classmates is dishonorable, but he's basically being told, no, sometimes you need to run to make sure everyone else can live and survive another day. Sometimes you need to go and get help, and that's not something to be ashamed of. To where 13 even says, use your power, use your quirk to help people, which, considering the devastating ability of 13's power, it's like it makes a good. She makes a good point. It's like her power is something that could be used for something that is quite dangerous because she's literally a black hole, and yet she is going and her main thing is she's a defensive hero. She's a hero who helps. She doesn't really do the whole fighting thing as much.
Mm-hmm.
So I just found that really interesting that she goes and further says, like, that's a lesson you need to learn. Sometimes it's not about fighting the bad guy. Sometimes it's about going for help. And especially for a speedster, considering depending on what comic or what superhero medium you follow, speedsters can generally be super overpowered. That's a really interesting way of taking it, I think.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think we've pretty much covered everything, unless you guys got something else to add.
No, I am interested to see I'm trying to find the right word. An expanding of the use of everybody else's abilities, because we've already seen some of the other characters using their abilities in different ways. I would really like to see other people, be more unique with how they use their abilities as well. I'm really interested to see how far that goes.
Yeah. That I think that's the only. I mean, I can understand part of the problem where it's like you have so many characters and only so much time. You have to pick and choose who you show. But it's like we've seen a lot of Bakugo's powers. Deko's our main hero, so we're going to see a lot of him. But it's like because we've seen Asui before, it's like we kind of had the gist of her powers. This is the first episode we've really got to highlight them. But now I would love, as you said, we want to see more of the other heroes. I want to see what Mr. Eaglehead's powers really are. I want to see why that girl in basically the little battle bikini, it's like what her power is. We got a small hint considering we saw like literal like a staff and a sword being pulled out of her body.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know much more than that. We're going to need more about what these characters can do. I know we're going to get it, but it's like, we want it now. Give it to us now, Sky.
Don't care how, we want it now.
Give it to us
How
now.
about no?
Give it to us now, Sky.
Nope.
Anyway, with all that said, I think we'll go ahead and call it now. And we'll go ahead and see you guys next time. But until then, y'all take care and stay frosty.
Bye now.
See ya.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's your ever-friendly Pokeprof, and I wanted to thank you for watching yet another episode of Getting With The Program. If you got any suggestions on how to make the show better, or you're just wanting to say hi, leave a comment below. If you also like and subscribe, that will definitely help us out on the channel. Also be sure to check out the upcoming episode of Fascinating Fiction, a solo series in which I'm wanting to do a little bit more scripted content. You can also follow both me and Kitty, and I believe also Sky as well, on social media, mostly Twitter, and as well as when we stream on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays over on Twitch, where we mostly just play games that I've never played before and goof around. Hope to see you guys there, but until then, stay frosty.